The month is October, and striped bass are flooding the local shorelines as they gorge themselves on small baitfish. These hard-fighting gamefish are a blast to catch, and very predictable and easy to find when you know what you're doing. If you're interested in catching dozens of stripers in only a couple of hours, clicking on this video was the right choice. Today, we're going to be going over everything you need from gear to tides, and if you stay till the end, I will talk about some spots and trade secrets to get your hands on some fresh fall striped bass. Hi, my name is Joe Purchase, and for the past few years, I've spent every minute not in school understanding our local fishery here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Striper fishing is exciting, easy, and sometimes can reward you with fresh white meat. The striped bass that you are fishing for are typically in the 16 to 28 inch range, but not infrequently a monster striper gets hooked and creates memories that will never be forgotten. This video will be split into time codes that you can find in the description box below. Links to all products talked about will also be in the description box with the lowest prices that I will update every single month. The first thing that we will be talking about in today's video, and in my opinion one of the most important parts, is the rod and reel. When looking for a rod and reel, there are a few things that you want to keep an eye out for, and I will go over all of them in this segment. First of all, I have always preferred fishing with a spinning rod because most of the lures are pretty lightweight and you will get the most casting distance and accuracy with a spinning reel. I like using a 7-foot medium fast action spinning rod paired with a 2000 size spinning reel. I like to pair that setup with 10-pound braided fishing line. And a quick tip for beginners, if you've never put fishing line on a reel before, take it to your local tackle shop and pay the $10 fee for them to do it for you. Not only will the line last longer on the reel, but while he's spooling the reel, you can talk to the owner about what's been biting recently. Today, I'll be showing off 3 reels and 3 rods ranging from least expensive to most expensive. Reel that I'm going to be talking about in today's list is the 13 Fishing Source K 2000 size spinning reel. This is the cheapest spinning reel on our list that's coming out right now at the time of this video at $28.98 before tax on Amazon. It's a pretty lightweight, pretty cheap reel. 13 Fishing is an extremely popular company and starting to kind of make their way into the saltwater scene. The reason that this reel is so cheap is that it's not in any way, shape, or form saltwater sealed. So what that means is if you get any saltwater in the reel, there is a possibility of corrosion. This, however, can be stopped as long as you keep good care of your reel when fishing in saltwater and wash it every time after fishing. The next reel on today's list is called the PC Fun Carbon X2, which comes in at a price of $79.99 on Amazon right now. This reel has very quickly become one of my very favorite reels in terms of all of the different sizes that they make. I really love the 2000 size, however, because it's the perfect weight, it's extremely lightweight, it's extremely smooth, and the drag is quite powerful. This reel, while it's not saltwater sealed, can take quite a lot of abuse and is definitely one of my favorites, especially if you're a beginner. If you're willing to splurge a little, this last reel in today's list will get you the most bang for your buck. At $129.95, the Penn Battle 3 2000 size is, in my opinion, the most versatile reel on today's list. This reel can do literally everything, and while it's not completely saltwater sealed, it's at least partially saltwater sealed, and in my opinion, I've had no issues with corrosion, and I've owned a range of different sizes in this reel and have never had issues. The drag is really strong, the reel feels very well built, and Penn as a company is extremely trusted, especially in the saltwater scene. Moving over to the rods, the cheapest rod on today's list is going to come out at $29.99. It's called the Berkley Cherrywood HD spinning rod. It's 7 feet long, it's medium action. What's very nice about this rod is it's 2-piece, which means it's able to kind of be more compact, fits in smaller cars. It's very good for the price. It's probably not going to last you a really long time, maybe 1 or 2 years at max, especially if you keep it in good condition. I've used this rod a lot. What's really cool is that this rod does have a hook keeper at the base of the rod so that your lure is not flying everywhere when you're moving around spots. And it's kind of rare to see a hook keeper on these lower priced rods, which I think is really cool. Berkley as well is a very well-known company in the fishing scene. They've been around forever. Very good rod, especially for the price. This second rod, which is the medium priced rod on today's list, is actually what I would suggest for anyone that's going to buy their first rod. The Ugly Stick GX2 7-foot medium 2-piece is going to be $39.95, and it's just an incredible rod. Ugly sticks have been known for being absolutely unbreakable. If you go up on YouTube, you look up ugly stick durability test, you'll see a bunch of different videos of people lifting gallon jugs of water with these rods. They're absolutely just beasts. I love them. They're quite light. And what's cool is you can use them for a wide variety of fishing. But for striped bass, they're absolutely incredible. And they're what I would suggest if you're going to look for your first striped bass fishing rod. That being said, if you want a rod that's really light, that'll pair very well with the PC Fun Carbon X that I talked about earlier in today's video, the Cast King Surex fishing rod, 7-foot medium fast action 2-piece rod that comes in at $49.99 is a really, really great option. This rod is by far the lightest on today's list, so if you're doing a lot of casting throughout the day, you're going to want a rod that's really light, and this is the perfect rod for this scenario. This also is the lightest action rod on our list. So if you're going to want more of a fun fight, if you're going to want to feel the fight more, this rod is what I would suggest. That being said, I have heard there are some durability issues after a few years, so you really want to make sure you keep good care of this rod. I personally have never had any issues, but I have heard some stories. That being said though, it's an extremely good lightweight rod and pairs very well with that PC Fun Carbon X. One quick reminder before we move on to the next segment is that the links to the cheapest prices to all of these products are available down in the description box below. Go check them out. Alright, now that you've got a good rod and reel, let's talk about the lures. When fishing the fall run, you're trying to cover as much ground as possible. So that's why I have found that fishing lures is much more efficient than soaking a bait. There are hundreds of different striper lures on the market, but in my opinion, you really only need 3 to catch fish during the fall striped bass run. Swimbaits are the most versatile lures around because they are a direct imitation of what the stripers are feasting on. I have found that from rocky shores, 3-inch swimbaits have been the most popular choice. However, if you're hunting for a big fish, upgrading to a 4 or 5-inch swimbait will yield a monster. My new favorite swimbaits that have been crushing the fish recently are a new swimbait company called GoBaits. They're a local small business based here in the Bay Area that makes 3-inch swimbaits perfect for the fall striper fishing season. I will leave a link to their Instagram as well as their email in the description box below if you want to go check them out. For the bigger swimbaits, I prefer to use AAA Big Hammer swimbaits, which come in a wide variety of colors and sizes. In the early morning or late at night, when the light and visibility is low, swimbaits streaking through the water can easily go unseen. That's when you need to bring out something that will make a lot of noise as well as commotion in the water. Topwaters are perfect for that, as they imitate a dying baitfish fluttering at the top of the water. Topwater fishing, while slightly more advanced, can be extremely rewarding with much bigger fish as well as some of the coolest eats in fishing. When using topwaters, I mainly focus on fishing either topwater poppers or spooks. When the fish are feeding close to shore, I like to fish the popper, but when I need more casting distance, I pull out the spook to get the fish that are out in deeper water. Some of my favorite topwaters right now will be linked in the description box below if you want to go check them out. The third and final lure I would include in your tackle box would be a good supply of jerkbaits. Jerkbaits are a great choice when you have found very active fish as well as decently sized fish. If you are looking for a big, hungry, striped bass in the middle of a day, a jerkbait is a perfect choice. Jerkbaits are the most expensive and hardest baits to fish on today's list, but sometimes a jerkbait is the difference between 2 16-inch fish and 2 30-inch fish. While jerkbaits typically aren't the first lure I've tied on to start a day, having them in your bag can be an absolute game changer when you least expect it. Now that we've talked about all the lures that you would need to catch fish, let's talk about the time of day as well as weather. One of the biggest sayings in fishing is that you have to get up bright and early to catch fish, and most times that's not always the case. However, with striped bass, that is most definitely the case. Striped bass are most active early morning, at dawn, and at sunset and dusk. That is when you see the most fish jumping out of the water and feasting on baitfish. While it might be hard to get out of bed, getting up early will always put you in a better position to fish the fall striped bass run. That also being said, the night bite is also a relatively decent time to fish, as some of the biggest fish gorge themselves at this time. If you plan on doing any night fishing, make sure to invest in a good headlamp to keep you from falling or getting hooked. In terms of weather, striper fishing begins to take off when water temperatures hit the 48 to 50 degree mark. ideal water temperatures for striper fishing are between 50 and 70 degrees. That being said, during the fall run, they typically bite, rain, or shine. When planning a trip, weather should not be as big as a factor. Okay, let's talk about tides. The factor that I take most into account when planning a striper fishing trip is the tides. The typical recommendation is to fish about 2 to 3 hours before high tide or about 2 to 3 hours outgoing tide. This, however, does change spot to spot, and as you fish a spot multiple times, you'll be quick to learn the patterns. Some anglers even recommend around dusk or dawn on a cool day during peak or slack tide. I use an app called Tide Alert, which gives me realistic tide charts all over the world. Let's talk about some spots. When looking for good striper spots, there are a couple of key pieces I look for. The first is bait. A great sign for any fishing spot is bait on the surface. Sometimes the water is clear enough to actually see the baitfish swimming around, but typically you will only see the small ripples on the surface of the water. Once you have found a spot with bait, see if there is structure in the water. Striped bass are predators, and one of their main tactics is sitting next to structure and waiting for small baitfish to swim by. Then they can reach out and catch them and go back to their hided spots, shielded from the current. Hearing good reports of fish being caught in the area is also good, because when there's one, there's typically more. I always fish a spot at least 5 times before considering a quote-unquote dead spot. If you try many different spots over the fall, you are bound to find one, and who knows, if you try enough, you might find the next secret gem. Some of my favorite spots to try are Corte Creek, Richardson Bay, and McNear's Pier. If you're still here watching today's video, you've hopefully gotten some nuggets of good information so far. To keep making videos like this that help you catch more fish, I would love some support from a viewer like you. If you could even click the like button down below, or maybe even subscribe to our community. Here at JZ Fishing, you aren't subscribed to be a follower, but to join the community. We regularly fish with subscribers, and our intention is to make a channel that's relatable and fun for everyone, regardless of age or gender. Alright, you guys have stayed here for long enough, it's time to give you some secret tips. At the beginning of the video, I promised some, and here they are. My first secret tip is using a fluorocarbon leader. I briefly talked earlier in today's video about using 10-pound braided fishing line as your main line, but what I did not mention is that the lure you are fishing should not be attached directly to the braid. While braid is great fishing line, it is not very sleek and easily seen in the water by fish. Striped bass are very good hunters, and when fishing lures with straight bait, you will very rarely get bites. Instead, you can attach a 3-foot piece of fluorocarbon fishing line at the end of the braid and put the lure at the end of the fluorocarbon. The sole purpose of fluorocarbon fishing line is that it is invisible in the water. Fluorocarbon can be quite expensive, so I would not suggest spooling an entire reel with it. A good fluorocarbon company will be linked down in the description box below. My second tip actually has nothing to do with the technique of fishing, but instead to do with the preparation. When I look for striper spots, a hidden gem that has helped me find so many good spots from the comfort of my home is FishBrain. FishBrain is an Apple and Android app that shows you local catches. The best way to describe it is a fishing Instagram. While there is a free version that I've used for years with ease, the paid version gives so many extra features that have helped me so much when it comes to finding spots and using good lures in the past few years. Break all the rules. Yep, you heard that right. My third and final tip is to break the rules that I've taught you today. Fishing is not a formula, and what works one day might never work again. While there might be patterns, there will always be off days, so experiment, because you never know. One day, when you least expect it, you might be fighting a 20-pound striper on a little trout jig. If you actually want to see some live footage of us using these tactics to catch big fall striped bass, I would highly suggest you check out this video in the upper right-hand corner.